Hello guys, we are going to look into something nice today. We're going to look at the grid. And we're going to do it in not the most extensive form, but it's still going to be very fun. The grid is not that difficult to understand when you just need to push over and get the hang of it. Most of what you see here is actually, visual aid just for you, so you can easily locate something, and I also like when it looks kind of new and fresh and you already know that I like to use colors. So this is just it. I've done a little bit of the grid already here, so we're going to look into that, but it's not as extensive as it is in the project, but it's the same logic. So we will understand that shortly. What you see here is right now, see a lot of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't have to care too much about those. They are just visual aids for you because what they're actually telling us is what kind of how many columns these are spanning. It's done using JavaScript and nothing you need to know. It's nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with how the grid works. It's just a visual aid for you to see visually which of the classes that are being applied here. You can also see that this is empty. We can see the div out here. And I'm going to just zoom in here so you see that a bit better. I think you already could see it before, but I can definitely assure you that you can see it now. There's not much going on in this HTML file, but actually we have just a body. Inside we have a div called grid. Doesn't have to be a div. Usually it's not a div. But right now we just use divs right through to make it very clean and simple as an example. Because nothing here has anything to do with the semantics right now, because we're just looking into the grid. What we've done here is we actually provided something already. And okay, I just want to take the elephant into the room and just clearly explain everything inside there. It doesn't stand the one there, but you can still see the one up here, right? Well, that's done with JavaScript, so please do not get confused with it. There is a reason for it being so. Now, just before we look at this code to the left, let's look at this. So this one is smaller, this is larger, a bit larger, even larger, and then you can see it. That trend continues on, and you can actually see how they grow larger all over until they reach the bottom. In the beginning here, they can actually fit next to each other on the same row. But as soon as they get too big to fit on the same row, then they just dump down. The natural behavior of a grid, where it's going to take up new rows when there's like no more space to be had. So what we are going to try and do here is actually to see what's going on. Both now when I scale it, you can see everything it's expanding. It's falling all the way up. And when I go down, everything is very dynamic and responsive. It looks awful, but it's still dynamic and responsive. What we really want to see is we want to be able to change this so it looks different depending on screen, right? So right now I might need these to actually occupy the same amount of space. So let's say I want, for example, all of them to be the same amount, the same size as all others. So let's do that. We can think about that and we'll say, okay, we got, in this case it's 12, but it could be any number. We want something divided here. And in this case, we also use a 12 grid. So this number of 12, you can actually fixated to more things. As I said in lecture 2, when we talked about the grid, we talked about how you could easily divide things just using when we have the number 12 as the core of the grid. So let's do that in our mind here and say, what could we do? Possibly do. We could have 2 columns. So 2 columns, and we have a 12 grid. What would that mean? So having a 12 grid right now, if I said I have a 12 grid and I say I take up 12 columns, that would actually mean 100%. So saying I have 12 columns in my grid and I take up all of them, it means I take up 100% of the width of that container. Right? So the grid up here being the container, if I say you are now going to be divided by 12, and then I tell an item inside that you are going to take up all those 12, there is nothing left. They are, in fact, taking up 100% of the grid. And we can see this in action because this one, the 12 down here, this is a class. We're going to come to these classes and how they're structured later on. But this 12 here is actually represented here in the grid. We can see at the bottom, it actually takes up 12, exactly 100% of the grid. This spacing around, that's due to the fact that on my body here, I added some padding around on the sides so it wouldn't fall out of the picture. And, be just edge to edge. I don't find that very appealing. So we can see this one, the 12, and then I can just follow along and say, well, if I take up 11 then, well, it's not 100%. It's 1 column less than 100%. So it goes here, right? And then 10 columns. You see, by saying this, saying column, how many? Yeah, 12. So column 12 means 12 columns. Really, that's the way of it. The reason why you think this is kind of weird, maybe we should write it like this, say col, and then go like this, 12 columns. But we can't. We can't start a class using a number. So that's the logic where you're saying col and then 12. Well, there's a reason for it, and there you have it. You can't start a class using a number. So we have col 12, very logical right now when we know why we cannot put it in the opposite direction there. So if I imagine now that I want 2 columns, 2 columns visually here. Well, not this one, because this is easy, just saying you're going to take up 2 columns, but I want to actually all of these to take up half. So in fact, if I say to all of them that they should take up half, they're going to expand into what would be visually 2 columns, right? Let's do that. What would that number be? Half of 12. It's easy. That's 6. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place my cursor about there. Going down here. I'm going to place a 6 there. And of course, this is going to be nuts down there. I'm going to remove those. So now we have col 6 all the way through, and I press save. You can immediately see that right now I have visually, this is really important, the distinction, that visually I have 2 columns, right? This is what I got, 2 columns. They could fit 2 of these on each row. Since there were 12 at the beginning, could have been any number, could have been 1,000, could have been 4, could have been 5. But since they were there, they are now placed on top of another in 2 columns. So this is, and if we would read them and there will be any text in them, I will read them like this as the first, this one as the second, third, fourth. So you don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go in that direction. you're still following the reading guidelines or the Western reading guidelines, going left to right, and going down these rows. So that's how they're stacked. Having this in mind, I mean, this is true. I mean, I want this maybe all the time. Maybe I want this forever. Would that be logical if I expanded this one on up and just went out and go nuts like this? Probably not. Probably at some point I would like these columns to not be as wide. Maybe I can fit 4 columns in here instead of 2. Well, how do you do that? How do I fix this? So let's look into that one. We have this one right now, and I'm going to just do something else here. I want to, on a certain level, certain screen size, I want it to shift. So I'm going to type col. In this case, I'm going to type something that might seem new to you, but we'll walk over these classes later on. I'm going to type LG, which actually stands for large. If you know anything about shopping clothes, probably you heard about XS or XXS or medium, large, XL, XXL. These numbers will be common used to here in when we're talking about using a grid, because they are used here as well. So now I'm going to think again. This is harsh. I don't like to think, but I can actually do this on all at the same time. So I'm going to do that. So if we want 4 of them to fit on the same row, and we have 12 columns to divide them over, we want 4 of them. So what kind of number would I fit here? 3 works 4 times, right? So if I have 3, I can use 3 4 times, and then I get 12. So that's simple. I could do that. I go col, and yet again I'm going to type this LG and 3, and then I save. And this magic appears here. If I go down again below a certain screen size, it goes down to these 2 columns. But if I go above, it goes into these. That's kind of nice, right? And what I want to show you here is that if I just had the possibility of learning the system, of saying, well, XS means a certain size, and SM, small, means a certain size, and then you go all of these clothes sizes from top to bottom here, and you just know those sizes and what they mean. Well, wouldn't it be much easier then to write your classes without ever having to look into the CSS and write new grids all the time? You could have actually one grid and just learn the system how to read these, what LG means, for example. And that's the reason why we got grids, actually. They are so neat and easy to interpret when you just get the hang of them. So let's look into this grid. I'm going to go over here and just control click so we can see it. So this grid, there's like no surprises here. There might be like surprises for you in some manner, since there's like a lot of rows, but it's not very cumbersome to look at, really. So what do we first do? We look at this parent thing, and the one that's up here. This is the first one. So we got it as a parent, as a container of all the items. We got the call this declaration display grid. Otherwise, this will be stupid junk. We can't use a grid system without calling up display grid or display flex. I know you can use float in a manner of speaking, but we don't use it anymore, and you shouldn't. So display grid, we call that so we can control it. We have a parent that controls its children. And then I'm saying something very logical here. I'm basically saying I want 12 columns and I want to have the equal size, and I want that size to be able to like grow. I'm saying all of that in these sentences. What I actually could have said, could have written this one FR, and I could have written it 12 times like this. It would have been a major pain in the ass to do that. So please don't force me to do that. This is much neater. And what I'm doing here is actually saying, write this 12 times. So repeat that 12 times. And then I have something grid autoflow initial. So I'm actually just taking what the browser got and not doing anything else with it. It's certainly, it's probably not something I need in this case, but still, it's there. I could remove it. I don't think it's going to change a thing. But just to make it simpler, I'll remove it right now. Grid gap, well, it's the spacing in between here. So the gaps between these blocks. And then we get to the fun stuff. Well, I get the class here, and the only thing it does, it's actually saying the grid column end. Okay. So I'm going to call the grid column end, how it's long it's going to span. So I'm saying you're going to span one column. So when you got this one, you're going to stretch over one column. That's all. That's all it does. It just says, I'm going to stretch over one column. And then this one is going to stretch over 2. And 3, and 4. And right now, I guess you believe that 5 means 5, and you're certainly correct in believing so. Because it's true, and you can continue guessing, and I think you would say col 6 spans 6 columns. So all of this is kind of easy to interpret. It's just a repetitive thing of saying how many columns these class represents, and it really represents the amount of columns that the class has called out here. So we say 12, that's going to span 12. This is very, very easy to interpret, straightforward. And the only new thing about it, it's maybe the structure you see, that it's, for some reason, someone has taken the time to write down every column. Well, that's the crux really there. You want to do that because you have this grid for any project, and then you can call up any column size between these 12 at any time you want. And it's going to work. So let's go down here again, and I can remove this one again just to not confuse anyone with that one. Something happens here. I'm saying something. I'm saying like at media only screen and then min width 996 pixels. What I'm actually saying is that from the size where my screen is 996 pixels or larger, well, then that's when these are going to kick in. Well, if I have them, of course. In this case, I do. But if I didn't have them in my hour here, let's say I remove these, I'm going to remove them all. Just go and remove them. Now, the screen size is going to be any size it wants. It's not going to kick in that one. If I type up here and go for this one though, I just want this one, go LG, and let's say I'm going to go with 3 and U. Well, yeah. Right now the screen size is larger than 996 pixels, and it's saying, well, if you've typed me, I'm going to exist then. But if it's below 996 pixels, nothing inside of this. Nothing inside of this media query will work because it's a conditional. It has to be met. It has to be a screen. It can't be printed. And it has to be a screen size or a window width of the browser. It's going to have to be 996 pixels or larger. Only then it's going to look inside. And if nothing inside here is used, well, it's not going to use them because there's like those clauses haven't been called. This is probably kind of straightforward, but I still want to be clear about that. Nothing here is going to happen if I don't call them. But if I call them, these are going to win over that one. And why is that? Now, we've been looking into this thing called the cascade before, and we've talked about source order. And in this regard, well, it's all about source order. Because you can actually see this is one class. It has the same specificity as this one class. So in regard to specificity, they are equal. No one of these can win over the other. So whether they are written inside a media query or not doesn't really matter in this case. If they're both valid, like in this case, I mean, both of them are valid. This one is valid. The one that says call 6 up here. And this one is valid. The one that says call all LG3. But why is this one used then? Well, that's because of the source order. It is mentioned later on in the CSS. And if everything else is equal, there's always going to be a situation where something is mentioned after. Because you cannot write things exactly the same. And the same space, take up the same space. It's going to be parsed after. And if it is parsed after and everything else is equal, the last mention of it is going to win. It's the way the cascade makes certain that before leaving the cascade step, it has an answer. In this case, the answer is, well, it's going to use this one because it's called. And this condition is met. And then, what's new in here then? Well, nothing. The only change is that I've tried to distinguish these so I can actually write two classes up in my HTML. I couldn't, if I had written this one again and called 3, would have, like, for example, say like this. I could have written, let's do that. Just to explain. If I do write this, and I don't have the LG, let's do that. Which one is used? Yeah, it certainly isn't this one. They're not going to care about it. And the very reason for that is it's written here, and call 6 is written down here. So if I want to make a change, I cannot depend upon things being only these. And if I want to make the change at a distinct size, it also has to have the condition of saying it's going to be from 996 pixels as an example and upwards. With E3, if I want those two things to be in place where you make the change at a certain size, well, and that change should be able to happen, right? Well, you have to do this. You have to have the condition in a media query, and you have to have grid that can actually function according to source order. So let's go back here again and say, how do I distinguish these two from one another? How do I make the distinction? Yeah, it's this. I'm trying to like locate a system which that people find useful. I mean, when we talk about sizes, there is nothing more common to talk about than just regular clothes. Everyone wear them, so that's where we reuse these concepts. And in fact, we can reuse them right now. Let's do it. I'm going to take this one and make a copy of it. So it's down here. Yeah, you see they're just identical. And there's something missing here. Like there's a lot of things missing, but we could mention one thing in this case. If I in fact wanted a size just between these two, between the the one who is on forever, because this one is going to be forever. I know that statement made no sense to you. I can address that immediately. But this is forever. These ones are forever. The only reason they are overwritten is because of the source order. But if no other class down here is written, is overwriting them, or then it doesn't really matter. They are always going to be true because we don't have this condition. There's no media query up here. Nothing. So by using this, you can actually set it for be on any size, on any screen size. It's going to just always be 2 columns, for example. So this is the kind of the base, the thing you are going to put at the mobile first level, the very small screen size. And it's only if you ever want to change something when you get to larger screen sizes that you're going to use the grid classes below. So let's make another one then. We're going to say 768, which is a common breakpoint. And now we cannot call them LG as well. We can call them MD. Yeah, let's do that. MD. What would that be? Medium? Medium? So we got medium there. And then right now, what's going to happen? We could try this on. There's a 6 there. And we go up. No change. Why is there no change? I don't think there's any confusion here. The reason is, well, we don't have any of those on here. Let's do them. Let's make them. We could say we have this LG3, which is wonderful. We can reuse this all over again like we did previously. So I'm going to first do that. So we have an LG3, and then just make another one, and this one is going to be 4. How many 4 column boxes can fix in a 12? Yeah, you can have 3 on each row then, right? So we can go MD. When we have 4 columns, they're spanning 4 columns, and you have 12 size grid. How many 4s fits into a 12? Well, 3 4s, right? So I'm gonna press save here. Oh, it's kind of weird here because we got this LG size, and then we go down. When we hit the breakpoint of 768, what's going to happen? Yeah, that happened as expected. Now we suddenly get these 4s over here. And it's no other reason than we are on 768, and we go lower. We go under 768. What's going to happen? Well, it went over to 2 columns. Isn't this neat? And it didn't really want to write all of this. There's just a grid already available for you that does this and more. There are so many more sizes. There are actually XS, and there's XS, and there's SM, there's MG, LG, XL, XXL, and XXXL. So there's like a lot of more sizes in there. And you don't want to write all of that yourself. You just want to use that while they exist in the project already for you. And this is why I show you this example in a smaller size to just get what's going on here. Why are we doing this? It's because in your future, you're going to use already made grids to make your work more efficient. You want to be able to place things easily. You want to show products, 1,000 products. Well, you could just use it. Yes, and it's going to span, it's going to be nice. So this is really a beautiful thing you could use grids. They could be cumbersome to look at, but extremely effective to use. Because when you know one, well, you don't go into it. You don't rewrite it. You don't have to. It works. The only thing you need to do every time is just to type these classes. And the day you learn JavaScript, you don't do this. You just do this. And this one is the only one you write. And then you loop in different content. You know, that's effective. That's where we're heading. That's component-driven design. But JavaScript is outside the scope of this course, but that's why we need to make these things effective. The grid is beautiful. You will love it. Don't be afraid of it. It is your friend. It's going to make everything so much easier if you just get accustomed with it. And in fact, in the project, it is required of you. So let's try this on. We can do other things. We could say, well, just throw this one in. This could be a 2, and this could be a 9. And this could be, 5, 6, or no, I don't want to make it the same 5, and well, 7. You know, they're still going to be there. We're going to make these changes, and I'm going to, whoop, there you go. 1, 2, 4, 5. I don't know. 2, 4, 4, 5, 4. I mean, you see, there's like, you can structure them differently. You can mash this up, and it's going to be nice. I think just play around with it. This code is going to be ready, available for you. I don't think you should do any more. I've written JavaScript to accept 3 of these classes right now to make it visually easy for you to understand. So I've written run for MG or LG. But if you continue on and just practice with this one and want to make other sizes that functions as well, you can. And they're going to function visually, but the numbers of 3 and stuff, they're not going to pop up inside. They're just going to not be there. Because the code I've used in JavaScript to show these numbers are just there as visual aids for you, nothing else. In fact, if I can show you the logic behind it, even though you don't want to. If you want to, this is all I got for you in the grid section. So you can just shut down. But if you want to follow and just look at what this JavaScript actually does, it's not required for you to know. It just, you might be curious. So the JavaScript here, I'm going to make this one. When you share videos and record videos, you want people to be able to read. But still, just the fact of getting people to read something here, it's kind of a daunting task since you get to zoom in so much. So we have this this one. It's the code up here. You don't have to care about it at all. This is the only thing it does. It animates the background. So it transitions well. You can animate linear gradients, but in CSS as well. But they are far from smooth. They are everything but smooth. So, and that's why I do that animation here in JavaScript instead. If I may, then I would like to show you the things that goes on You may or you may not have introduced to code before like this. And yet again, it's not required for this course in any manner. It's just for sake of your, you might be curious. So the first thing I do here is I declare something called a function. This is a concept used in any kind of programming where you're writing something that you want to do something, you want something to be done, you want to store that action that can be used again and again. And a function could be, in your life, it could be making a cup of coffee. And then you want to store in your memory how to make a cup of coffee. So you store that function. And now I know how to use this machine. Now I know how to make the cup of coffee with this machine. That is just the simplest way you could say a function works. A function can also have something called parameters. You can pass them up in here. And to make a cup of coffee, for example, you might need a couple of things. For example, coffee and a water. And maybe you need a coffee machine. Maybe you need electricity. Or you don't. It depends on the coffee situation you're in. But yeah, parameters, right? You can just not only know which kind of buttons to click if there's no coffee machine to click on. So you gotta have these things, these ingredients, and you can just put them in here. That's the simple way of explaining a function. So that's what's going on in here. Everything inside it is one big function. It's not a very neat function. It's not how we run function. We want, usually we want functions to do very little, and then we use a lot of functions instead and combine them. But in this case, I find it just unnecessary to do so. It was just for a visual aid, nothing I'm going to reuse in the future. So the next thing I do is this one, this says div. That's something that you already know. This says class. That's something you already know. You see this one as well. Call, dash, well, that's what you see for all of these classes, call dash. So what this one actually does, it selects them. It's going to go inside this side, the document. We can say that's the document. And it goes query förfrågan, which is a Swedish förfrågan. Just selector all. I'm going to select all. And since there are quite a few here, they are going to be stored like, I'm going to store those divs where I'm going to store them in a list, right? So we get a long list. So what is a list? Well, you don't have to know what a specific programming list to understand what a list is. You know what a list is in your real life. A list. It's nothing more. The only thing it does here is goes out and looks for any div with a class that starts with this. And then with all of the divs that are true to this condition, that have this, they're going to be stored here in divs as a list. So this is a list. It's a shopping list. You could just, it's that simple. It's a list, nothing more. Now we have all of those divs in a list. And we want to look over this list. We have divs, and for each div, okay, so we're going to do something here based on each item on the list. We have this shopping list of divs, and for each one of them, we are going to make this happen, whatever this is. So for every one of them, we're going to do this. So we start with the first one on the list and do all of this. And then we go to the next one and do all of this again. And then we go to the third one and we do all of this again. You see, if I had to write that thing over and over again for 1,000 things, that would be horrible. I'm just so darn pleased that this function exists. or this is, well, you could call this a function. We can call this a function, but it's just for not introducing more concepts. So we have the for each here. It goes through. It is actually kind of loop, but anyway, it loops over, and then we go inside and we see what it does. Oh god! You know, when I hover this, there's actually a way of saying it's going to not show all of these links as quickly as it does, but I haven't typed that in here as any, so it's really annoying, especially when you're recording. But let's go to the first line. So go in, store a variable again. And what it does here, it's actually splitting. So I get each class in that div by itself. The syntax of it, you don't have to care about it. But basically what I want to do is I want a list for this item here. I want a list again. I get just another list. A list of my classes used in here. I want all of those. And I get them in a class list. Wonderful. Now, I want to know a couple of things. I want to see which screen size my window size my browser is at. This is actually very neat because we talk about screen size a lot, but really what we're talking about is the window size. So we're going in here to the window size and we're saying if you are larger than or equal to 768 pixels. You don't have to write the pixels. It knows. It cannot be anything else than pixels, really. So, and okay, so you don't only have to be larger than or equal to 760 pixels, and the window is smaller than 996 pixels. Okay, you know, we'll stop here and think. If something is larger or equal to 768 and smaller than 996, it should ring a bell. There is something like that. We just did it. So we did it over here in the style, in grid. Didn't we start to write this one, MD? And the MD would be true between the size of 768 pixels and up. That is true. So we are here actually saying 768 pixels, but we have something that could overwrite it. It doesn't have to, because this is going to be true from 768 pixels and up. If we do not overwrite it, so down here I have 996 pixels. If we use any of these classes on the same div, these are going to overwrite the one above because they are of the source order, but only when we are above this one, right? So let's go back to the main here and just close this one down. So suddenly it seems a lot like we're looking inside of this, these sizes, which we use for MD. And we want to make certain that as well. So, and the class list, we just brought these classes up here, you know? We just selected all the classes that were inside here, all of them. We have a list of them. And we look inside it again. If these two previous conditions are true, that we are between 768 and 996, and the class list has this inside of it. Well, if there's any item inside that list that has this letters combination, well, that would be cool, because if that was true and all of this was true as well, then and only then do we do this. And this is what's going on here. It actually takes care of, looking at the MD1 over here, and then it removes. So we only get the value just behind MD, the number, and that number is then through over a process down here, then shown to you. So that's why you see these numbers up here. So if you were to use anything else in this case, in this scenario where I've written a visual aid, it would only function if you also corrected the JavaScript. But this JavaScript does not do anything else than changing the color of the background and showing the numbers. It has nothing to do with the grid. It just makes it easier for you to see the numbers. So let me prove that to you. In fact, I use this script down here, and I'm going to just remove it. And, well, you see the background's gone, as it should. And you see the numbers are gone. But the grid functions as always. So you can play around with it a lot, but I still want you to know that if you want those numbers to pop up, so you can see them and it's neat and it's nice and stuff like that, you should definitely not only you should either stick to these 3 sizes in just this practice case, because there are going to be more in the future, or you could extend the JavaScript and look into the logic behind it. But because the logic is already there, you just have to copy and make an extra else if statement in there. But that might be, and probably is, way out of your restriction, and your restriction, you shouldn't worry about it. But now you get it. Now you have the whole system there. You know, when I see these boxes over there, I would like them to wiggle. That would be really cool if I just did this and they're like wiggling. Almost like some kind of artsy thing going on here. I didn't imagine them without the black or the dark background. I didn't imagine them without those numbers. So seeing this without them was kind of new to me. But this was cool. Anyway, with this done, I think what I've done here is actually gone way overboard when I went on there explaining it's not difficult JavaScript at all, but it's way out of the scope of this course. So what I really want to bring back to the table is what I said earlier. Grid is wonderful, it is easy, it's repetitive, and it's effective. So please look into this video and try to make sense of it. If I didn't make sense at all, please, I encourage you to try to make sense of it on your own. Play around with it. Thank you very much.